And welcome back. As you can see, I've completed the trailing edge of the right elevator there using the tool with the angled pieces of die in the springs. It makes really quick work of the trailing edge, and you're able to set all the rivets pretty quickly, and they'll turn out really well. So if you haven't already, or if you're thinking about it, I would highly recommend getting that tool that we talked about in the last video. So now I am working on assembling the connector for the trim tab motor. It's 6 leads, I believe, and you end up assembling the connector piece with 6 micro pins, and they're not the easiest things to work with. Because they're so small, they rotate very easily, and you end up not getting a very good crimp. But what you do is you cut back the insulation on the wires so far. You don't want to go too far because the connectors have 2 sets of wings on them, and you'll crimp one set of wings over the wire itself, and then the other wing will go over the insulation and hold on to the insulation. That's how you get a good connection with these pins. Well, because they're so small, the pins will rotate as you're trying to crimp them, and you end up not getting the greatest crimp. So you really have to pay attention and really have to try to hold it in place as you're crimping to prevent it from rolling. That way you can get both wings folded in correctly to pin against the wire or the insulation, whichever part you're doing. And so here, it took me a little bit of practice. I think the kit comes with 7 micro pins, if I remember. I think I had an extra one, and I had messed one up, so I had to redo it. So I was glad that it had an extra one. But just go through, make sure you're looking at the instructions for the trim motor and the instructions for the kit, and you're pinning the correct ones, and then more importantly that you're putting the correct pin into the correct location of the connector. I believe there are 2 or 3 white leads that are the power leads. If I recall correctly, they're essentially the polarity for the motor. And so one way you can test to see you have good connections once you insert the pins is to take a 9-volt battery and take the negative to the ground pin, and then take the positive into the battery to each of the white power leads, and that should start the motor operating in one direction or the other, depending on which polarity you have applied to. But the pins and the wire specifically is so small and so thin, it's hard to get the pins in to the connector housing. So one thing you may want to do is try to find just a stiff rod of metal or something that's small enough that you can use that to push the metal pins. Once you've got them connected to the wire, push the pins in with that, because usually you can use the wire to push these pins into the housing, but because this wire is so small, it just folds and collapses, and it has no strength to push the pins into place. But make sure you line the pins in there, and then get something to basically ram the pins into the position they're supposed to be in. And then you can look on the other end, on the where it connects with the female connector housing, and you can look at the pins there and make sure they're all in the correct position and whatnot. And then, like I said, you can test it with a 9-volt battery and just make sure that the motor operates correctly. So it took me a little while to get these pins going, and then once you get them connected, you put them into the housing. And then the other thing I have yet to do, I have to get a wire printer, a labeler, and I actually just ordered one and got it in as I'm editing this video. I got it in yesterday and started practicing with it, but the instructions have you label the wires, and the best way to do it is to use a label maker for wires. And most of my wiring, I'm going to try to do heat shrink labeling, just because it's cleaner and it helps protect connections and whatnot. This one, unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I had to use just regular tape labels, and so it's set up to where the printer I have, I think it's a Dymo label printer, but it prints out the code that you used, the instructions call out, and then you just wrap it around the wire, and you can see what the label is, what the code is for the wire and whatnot. But like I said, eventually, as I'm starting to make more wire bundles and wiring all the avionics and things like that together, I'm going to start using heat shrink labels to make it a little bit nicer and a little bit cleaner. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let this run out here. I appreciate those who continue to watch these videos. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, by all means leave them down below. And if you get a chance, hit that like button for me. My goal with these videos, as I've said before, is mostly these are for my own use, my own entertainment, and my own review, so that later, if I have a question on how I did something, if I need to make a repair or whatnot, I can come back and look and see what I did. But also for those who are interested in building, this is something that I think would be useful for those who are looking into an RV-14. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time around.